Republican Congressman Thomas Massie says holding Attorney General Pam Bondi in contempt of Congress is on the table if she doesn't answer questions about the Justice Department's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case during a hearing with lawmakers later today. Joining us now, co-hosts of The Rising on thehill.com and YouTube, I've got Lindsey Granger and Robby Soave. Good morning to both of you. Lindsey, take your pick on topics that could be thrown Bondi's way today, right? Epstein, Minnesota, DHS ICE funding, potential government shutdown. What do you think is going to be the headline at the end of this hearing?
And don't forget Venezuela as well. But I think that out of all those huge news-making stories, we're definitely going to hear Bondi have to explain herself around Epstein. I mean, she was one of the people that overpromised and underdelivered on this. And now that we're months into the new year, people just expected more, less redactions in the files, more information and more transparency. And so, out of the half of the files that have been released and the millions that still haven't come out, people want to know, did the DOJ mishandle this? And what are the exact reasons why? And so I think we're seeing that not only the survivors, but Republican and Democratic Congress people are pushing for this. So she's really going to have to put her feet to the fire and answer some of these questions.
Yeah. Robby, let me play a bit of sound. Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna, who named 6 alleged co-conspirators of Epstein on the House floor on Tuesday, just told NewsNation this last night.
People want accountability. They're tired of the cover-up. There is a lot of explaining to do. The FBI has a lot of explaining to do of why they redacted so many of these things in March.
Yeah, so Robby, what do you see ahead as lawmakers continue to really hone in on these redactions and what it's going to mean for Attorney General Bondi's testimony later today?
Well, I agree with Lindsey that the AG has very little credibility now, frankly, with anyone, with MAGA, with her own side. She said there was such a thing as a client list, presumably powerful men who Epstein had trafficked underage girls to, but no such thing exists in any of the files released. I mean, my question for Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie is they've named these 6 names on the House floor, and they said they're highly incriminated in the files. But what does that mean? There's evidence of them engaged in the sexual crimes, or is it something else, or is it just some kind of guilt by association? So we actually need a lot more information about what exactly they are alleging, in addition to why there was then a discrepancy between 6 people who were also involved in Epstein's sexual crimes, but then why did the Attorney General say there's no, and Kash Patel said there was no one else indicated criminally in such a manner. So it's a huge conflict in these different accounts that I think all of the American people, MAGA and Democrats, want answers to.
Yeah. And Robby, just a quick follow-up. You've questioned the continued focus and outrage over the Epstein files. Yes. Do you still feel that way this morning, and why?
Well, I do, because I've been told now for months and months and months that there is a cabal of elite individuals involved, not just in they were wrong to continue associating with Epstein, but that they were involved in sex crimes. And millions more files come out, and we don't see that. Instead, we see an attempt to smear people by association. But Ro Khanna says now he named those 6 people, and he implied, at least, I think, that it has to do with Epstein's crimes. So I want to get to the bottom of that. I want the Justice Department to take action. But I don't want to just keep hearing someone did something wrong, we can't tell you who. That starts to make me suspicious that people are not being honest about what's actually in the unredacted files.
We'll see what's in store today. Lindsey, before I let y'all go, meanwhile, you've got this federal grand jury in Washington, D.C. refusing to indict 6 congressional Democrats over their video urging military members to refuse to follow illegal orders from the president. I mean, we've been following this closely. Another setback for the DOJ here. What do you make of that decision?
I think it's an example of when you seek political retribution or try to overcharge as the Department of Justice, an entity that's supposed to be apolitical, of it not really working out well. And when you attack people like veteran Mark Kelly, and you look at the fact that they're just telling people what's actually on the book for people in the military, that they don't have to follow illegal orders, it's not something that he said that really should rock the boat too much. And he and the rest of the Congress members that were part of that video. So I think at a time when Congress on both sides of the aisle were questioning some of the president's actions regarding Venezuela and our so-called war on drugs and Maduro and everything else. I think that that was a rightful statement to happen in that moment at a time when the world was watching what we were doing next and then whether or not it was legal.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.